folks, welcome back to the channel. I hope you can hear okay. There's a little bit of wind coming behind me. The camera's waterproof. The external mic I normally use is not, so I didn't bring it along. I also don't have the monitor to know if I'm even in the frame, so hopefully I am. We've gotten the user interface of our application, at least for the login and the sign up, pretty much done. We're ready to dive into the back end, but before I did that, I wanted to take a minute and just talk about why I chose the state management system that I chose, because it is such a hot button issue in Flutter right now. We've got some real hardcore advocates for each of the many state management options out there, and feelings get quite intense. I'm going to use RXDart. I'm going to use RXDart to create blocks, and I'd like to explain why I chose RXDart over something like Provider, Change Notifier Provider, or the Flutter block library. So starting with Provider is enormously popular. My videos on Provider have been my most popular videos, and Change Notifier Provider has been clearly the most favorite of people who have watched the channel. So it may surprise you that I'm not going to use it. And I'm not going to use it in this case, not because I don't like it, but because we're going to be using Firestore for a lot of our data, and Firestore streams. And so the data coming out of the database will be streamed to my user interface. And if I use Change Notifier Provider, I am introducing a different behavior for variables that I am keeping locally than those that I am bringing in from my database. And I don't like to do that. I like consistent behavior in my changeable variables in my user interface. So by using RXDart, I can put everything, whether it's a locally maintained variable, whether it's a feature that I'm waiting to resolve, I can put that all in a stream, and when I'm dealing with the user interface, I know that every variable, regardless of where it's coming from, is a stream. That's one reason. The other reason is there's going to be quite a bit of validation here, and I do have a video on using Change Notifier Provider for validation. It worked pretty well. It was a bit of a setup process. We had to create our own custom object for validation, and I find RXDart to be really good for validation. You can hook that stream right into the text field and immediately give the user feedback as they break the validation rules. So that's the reason I chose RXDart over Provider. Now, as far as the Flutter library is concerned, I just haven't worked with it a lot, so that's really the biggest strike against it for me personally, is that I'm hesitant to use a package that I haven't used in production or even a mock production environment. Now, I'm told that it saves quite a bit of boilerplate code. You may have noticed, if you've gotten this far with me, that I am not opposed to boilerplate code. I think I've frustrated some of you with not using packages that present some shortcuts in development throughout this process. All right, so I started talking about boilerplate code, and the wind kicked up and the waves got big. And to get the heck out of there, find some shelter. But saying it, you probably noticed I'm not opposed to boilerplate code. And every time you put a package in your application, you're introducing a potential liability. That person may not upkeep the package, there may be breaking changes. So when I look at how much effort that's being saved by putting in a package, I really have to see a lot of savings. And with RXDart, I'm able to set things up pretty quick. And so it's just not worth it to me to dive into a state management system with a code generator. Those are just my thoughts. At the end of the day, you have to go with what you're most comfortable with, and I'm most comfortable with either RXDart or Change Notifier Provider, and I said why Change Notifier Provider didn't work for this. I'm definitely going to use the dependency injection portions of Provider, so we will be using Provider in this application, just not the state management portions of it. So those are the reasons I went with RXDart. Hope that makes sense. Next time we'll actually start to set up the blocks that are going to contain the authorization code and the login code, and so we'll see you next time.